Warm welcome at the Thinking Palette platform. At this platform, we have started a new series that is Burning Issues series. In this series, we will deal with the important topics from the exam perspective and considering the complexity of the topic. Now, the very first topic which I am going to take is India-China border dispute. Now, in a general term, if I say that define the Indo-China relation, it can be defined in many ways, but in my way, to define the Indo-China border dispute in the term of 4C, that is conflict, cooperation, and competition, along with containment. Along with containment. Understood? Now, where are the disputes at the different sector? The dispute at the different sectors is at eastern sector, western sector, and middle sector. We will look into the details that what are the different disputes. But the recent skirmish is at the Pangong and the Sikkim, that is Nakula Pass, and at Daulat Bagh Oldie. It is not a very new kind of dispute because in 2013 also we have seen the recent skirmishes in the Chinese border. Now, what is the Chinese strategy as far as the war between or the border dispute between Indo-China and also China with the South China Sea and also the China with the neighboring countries? What is the strategy of China? China is basically using three different kinds of strategy. That is media strategy, that is media warfare. Second is legal warfare. We have seen in the case of Doklam, they have used the legal warfare. And the third is psychological warfare. This is the psychological warfare. It means to build the pressure tactics on the neighboring countries. Now, my question is there any kind of solution to the border dispute? My very plain question is that there is no any solution to the dispute because they don't want to find out the solution. Now we will look into that what are the recent initiatives which have been done in the past to maintain the good border relationship. In 1988, during the Rajiv Gandhi government, this is a joint working group has been set up. For the flag meeting has been initiated under joint working group. And in 1993, under the Narasimha Rao government, this is agreement on the peace and tranquility at the border has been signed between the two countries where they have promised to reduce the number of troops from both the side and they have done so. Now, the next is very important, that is guiding principle and political parameters. Under the guiding principle and political parameters, they are basically trying to demarcate the boundary and in accordance with the provisions of the Panchil. But at the same time, one of the provision in guiding principles and political parameter is that they will take the concern of the people living in that particular region. For example, Tawan, whatever the boundary dispute will turn into the settlement, then the concern of the people living in that region will also be taken into consideration. And the last one is Border Defense Cooperation Agreement during Manmohan Singh government. In this Border Defense Cooperation Agreement, they have come out with the certain provisions that they will not use any military force and also patrolling will not be done in the area where the LAC is not defined. Now, we will look into what is LAC also. Understood? Now, moving to the next slide, the very first thing which you should know about the Indo-China border dispute, that we have a dispute at three different sectors: western sector, central sector, and eastern sector. And there is a concept of LAC, LOC, and international border. Whenever you will look at the border dispute, then you will find these three different definitions. LAC is basically between India and China. And LAC runs from this, that is the western sector, to the eastern sector. And LOC, you all know, that is between India and Pakistan. The difference between LAC and LOC is that most of the borders are demarcated in case of Pakistan. But in the case of LAC, borders are not demarcated and therefore there is a different perceptions about the border on both the sides. An international border is the kind of border which you can say that it is settled and has been recognized internationally. Therefore, you will look into that in the certain area of the Ladakh also. For example, in the Ladakh, 337 kilometer is of international border which has been recognized, and the rest 480 approximately kilometer has been under the LAC. So therefore, at the Chinese border, there will be a mix of LAC and international border. Understood? Now, looking into the recent, you can say, the recent scrims in the eastern sector. But before that, I want to give you the idea that what is the genesis of the problem at the eastern sector. And for that, I will have to go into the history. Now, this is the McMahon line. What happened in 1913 and 1914? There was a Simla conference held. Understood? This Simla conference was basically called for setting the boundary agreement or for setting the boundary line at this region. This is the McMahon line. Now, what happened at this conference, that the British India plus Chinese official plus officials from Tibet were called. And at this conference, it has been decided that this McMahon line will run like this. But China has not accepted that. And China has also said that this Simla conference is in direct contravention of Anglo-Russian agreement of 1907. Now the question arises, what is this agreement? According to this agreement, whenever there is any kind of boundary settlement, and the China must be involved in that whenever you are going to negotiate with Tibet. But in this case, China has denied, therefore, they don't consider McMahon line as a legal line. And they also are of the view that the Tibet does not have a right, because Tibet is not a sovereign country, and thus it does not have a right to sign on the behalf of China. And also, along with coming together of British India and Tibet, China must involved there. Understood? Now, what is the contention of the China? China is basically demanding that in this region, that is the basically in the Tawang region, China demands that this is the boundary line of China, and China wants south of the McMahon line, sometimes Tawang Strait and sometimes entire Arunachal Pradesh. China wants to the boundary of the Chinese territory. And why they are demanding so? Because they are telling that Tawang is a part of the last king emperor of China in 1912, and the king emperor has a right to control the sovereignty of Tawang, and therefore Tawang is a part of Chinese territory. Understood? This is the crux of the problem, and this is the genesis of entire border differences between India and China at the eastern sector. Now we all know that recently, 5 days back, what happened at Sikkim, and we will go into detail that why it happened in Sikkim, because Sikkim is not considered as a part of border dispute between India and China. Now, but before that, you will have to go into the little bit of history. What happened in 1967? There was clashes at Nathula and Chola. The clashes were happened in 1967 when Sikkim was the Indian protectorate. But in 1975, referendum held in Sikkim, and Sikkim became the part of India. At this time, China protested. And this is obvious that China will protest, but no issue. In 2003 and 2005, China has accepted that the Sikkim is a part of India. And in 2005, Chinese Prime Minister has also made a remark that Sikkim is not a matter of contention between India and China. Now the question arises that what happened in 2020, that again this eastern sector, the Sikkim, again become the matter of border dispute between India and China. Understood? Now, look into what happened in 2020. We have constructed a road. That is connecting Doklam. Understood? Now, when you will look at the map, then you will find that this is the area like this. Okay? This is entire Nepal. This is Sikkim. And this is Bhutan. Understood? And now this is Nakula Pass. Now you can understand that if the road is being connected from this Nakula Pass to the Doklam, then obviously there will be certain kind of pressure building on China. And therefore, China has started intrusion in this Nakula region. And it is not that we have constructed only one road. We have started constructing a new road that will connect, that will go further and will make an easy movement of the Indian troops in this region. Therefore, the recent defense infrastructure development is the reason of the dispute between the India and China at the Nakula region. Now we will move into that what is the issue at the western sector, because there has been a recent intrusion in the Pangong Lake. Therefore, we will look into that what is the geography of the Pangong Lake and what's happening and why happening in this region. Understood? But before that, we will have to look into that what is the crux of issue at the western border. Understood? Now, understanding the western border, you will have to understand these two lines, that is Johnson line and McCarthy MacDonald line in 1899. Johnson line, basically W.H. Johnson, he is a British officer. Basically what he did, that he draw the boundary line and put Aksai Chin into the Indian territory. At that time, what Johnson did, that he has presented the map only to the ruler or king of Jammu and Kashmir and not to the Chinese official. Why? Because Chinese has no control over Xinjiang region in 1865. Therefore, Johnson has not put the map before the Chinese. But what happened, that in 1892, Chinese has reconquered Xinjiang. Okay? Chinese has reconquered Xinjiang. It simply means that the Xinjiang came into the control of China. Now, McDonald line has again redrawn and that put Aksai Chin under the China. And one thing which you need to understand here is, now come to the map so that it will be easy for you to understand. Now, this McDonald line put the south of Ladakh range under the control of China and north of Laksang range, that is Aksai Chin, into China territory. Understood? But there is one thing which you need to understand, that they have made this line according to the McCarthy MacDonald line, but British officers have never used this line into their map. Understood? They have always used Johnson line that put Aksai Chin into Indian territory. Understood? Now, what happened in 1947, that India demanded that the northeast of the Karakoram, again go into the map to understand it in a better way, that India wants that the northeast of the Karakoram to Kunlun range is the Indian territory. Understood? And you all know the current understanding that the Aksai Chin is under the control of China. So basically, this is the region for the contention between India and China in the eastern sector. We have talked about Johnson line, MacDonald line. 1899-1945 is the time during which they have never used MacDonald line and always used Johnson line. And 1947 to today, what is happening? You will have to understand that what is the demand of India and what is the current position of China in the Aksai Chin region. This is the crux. Now moving to the recent crisis in the Ladakh region. Now, Ladakh region, just in the start of the video, I have talked about that the 368 kilometer is the international boundary here and 489 kilometer line of actual control in Ladakh region. Understood? Now, what is the major flashpoint in this entire Ladakh region? This is a Daulat Bagh Oldie, and Daulat Bagh Oldie we have talked about that in 2013 also. What happened in this area is that the Chinese have started creating the camps in the Daulat Bagh Oldie region, and in retaliation Indian ITBP have also started creating camps in the Daulat Bagh Oldie region, but the matter has been resolved within a month by the flag meeting or by the general consultation between the commandants of the region. Understood? Now, Chumur is also a very important part because China wants, or China has a contention over the 80 kilometer of the Chumur region, and the next is Pangong, and in Pangong there is a controversy over 83 kilometer on the terms of border between India and China. Understood? Now we will go into what is the strategy of China in Ladakh region, and then we will understand that what is happening and why it is happening. Understood? Now this is the three-pronged strategy. I have talked about three-pronged strategy. This is the reason that, for example, this is Pangong Lake. You are looking the Pangong Lake. This is Chushul approach. This is the south of Pangong. Okay, and this is the Sirijin Pass. Sirijin Pass. Now, okay, three-front strategy means from the north, Sirijin Pass, China will attack. From the south, Chushul approach, China will attack, and China have attacked in 1962 in the south of the Pangong region, and in the middle, Pangong, that is Pangong Lake. Now, this is a three-pronged strategy to encircle India from the Pangong region. And you all have heard about the finger point whenever you have read in the newspaper in the terms of that India has a control over certain finger point or not. We will look into what is the meaning of finger point. Understood? Now, finger point is nothing but in Sirijin Pass, just I have talked about Sirijin Pass. Sirijin Pass has certain cliffs or spurs. These are basically a geographical features. These are called cliff spurs. And from here, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. This is the Indian territory. Okay. But the problem here is that India is demanding that in the entire cliffs, India should have a control from 8 number finger to 1 number finger. But the current position is that Indian troops have a control over only finger point number 4, and the other region is under the Chinese control. Now, what happened in the back or what happened in the history, we will have to understand the recent Pangong crisis. Now, what happened during the Kargil war? The Indian troops were engaged in the Kargil and taking the benefits of the absence of the Indian troops. Basically, Chinese have started creating roads along the Pangong Lake. Okay, this is the basically the Chinese control. Along the Pangong Lake, they have started creating the motorable road. And now India is constructing the road. We have seen here that India has already constructed this road. Okay, this is the Daulat Bagh road. India has already constructed, and India has also better positioning in the Pangong Lake because we are using better ships. Okay, so therefore, China considered that India is strengthening its troops and also defense infrastructure in this region. Therefore, this is some kind of pressure tactics. Understood? This is nothing but a kind of pressure tactics on the India by opening two front and the Sikkim and in the Ladakh region. Now the question is, what will be the implication of India if the current intrusion will go on and will not get settled? Then what Chinese can do? Chinese can cut off the entire Siok Valley, entire Chipchap plain. They can cut it down, and Chinese can also reach Siachen through Depsang. This is the Depsang route. By taking this route, Chinese can enter into Taskurgan Junction, and this is the junction through which CPEC passes. Understood? Now you can understand that why Chinese want to have the intrusion in the Ladakh region to secure the position at the CPEC. Understood? So Chinese can cut off this Chipchap, Siok, and Depsang route through. They can come to have a better guarding at the CPEC. Understood? Now, what can be the solution for this border dispute? Well, frankly speaking and practically speaking, this is just like a thermometer to regulate the temperature or to maintain the equilibrium of the relationship, and therefore both the countries does not want to settle the border dispute. Understood? And this is more pronounced and more valid in the terms of the Chinese perspective. They have settled the same McMahon Line boundary dispute with Myanmar but does not want to settle it with India. Understood? Now, we will have to, in the answer, you will have to give something which is better than nothing. Understood? Now, LAC plus solution. This is the solution given by Ambassador Syam Saran. Ambassador Syam Saran has said that, okay, India will maintain the status quo in the eastern sector, that is in the Arunachal Pradesh and Tawang. India will maintain the status quo, and Chinese should give some concession in the western sector. I don't know why Chinese will agree to this, but okay, we will have to put the words of the Syam Saran without mentioning his name in GS answer and by mentioning his name in political science answer. Understood? Now, second is package deal. there are two kinds of the package deal. One was initiated by Zhao Enlai, and the next was initiated recently in this year by Dai Bingao. Dai Bing, you all know about the Zhao Enlai. He is a Chinese premier in 1970s. Dai Bingao is called Henry Kissinger of China. You all know about the Henry Kissinger. Who was Henry Kissinger? He was the greatest. He was considered as the greatest diplomat of the U.S. Likewise, this Dai Bingao is considered as the Chinese Henry Kissinger. What is the package deal? The package deal of the Zhao Enlai was that India should consider that the Chinese have a control in the Aksai Chin, and we will consider that the India have a control over Arunachal Pradesh. This was the kind of package deal which India has rejected. Likewise, Dai Bingao recently has said that now if India will consider our concern in the eastern sector, then we will give some concession elsewhere. Then we will give some concession elsewhere. Elsewhere simply means that in the sector of western sector, that is Aksai Chin, because middle sector is largely demarcated. Middle sector simply means that is it is Uttarakhand plus Himachal Pradesh. It is largely demarcated. Therefore, Dai Bingao said that give us concession or recognize our concerns in the eastern sector, and we will give certain kind of concession to you in the western sector. Thanks a lot, and I think that you have enjoyed this series, and we will continue this series, and I will come with the next very important and little bit complex issue so that it will be easy for you to answer any question in the mains examination.